except for welcome. And this is Lines Gathering. If you haven't, you should talk to each other. You should know everyone's name. It's a very small group, and we all know each other on the internet. So make sure that that happens in real life. There's some shit to play with here and there and here, if you want to play with those things. But the reason for the night, the reason for the season, is we have 4 really, very different and very deep and really beautiful folks who have offered to share some of their knowledge with us and some of the things that they're exploring. The idea is that this is like threads come to life. And so anything that you think you would respond with, you should respond with not in like direct real time, I guess, but like maybe after each one, get a little conversation going. Things that you are curious about, especially Chase. And yeah, it should be just like fun and goofy. And there's some beer if you like beer. I don't know if there's any other beverages. There's some seltzer. Oh my god, we love a sharp water. Anyway, it is a very special thing.
Do you call it sharp water?
What's that? Tap water?
Sharp water?
Sharp water, yes.
I call it fuzzy water.
I like that. Can I borrow?
I mean, I'm gonna take sharp.
Okay, great. Really good. An intercoastal. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, this is good. This made it all worth it now. I have a new way to talk about seltzer. Fun. Trent, thank you for letting us be in the inaugural Space Day. 72 hours ago, this did not exist. This was an idea.
The tree was a little seed?
Yeah. Yes, all sweat. That is how it grew.
Yeah.
You want to say anything about the thing?
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here. And it's fun. We've had this space since September, and this is the first time ever having more than 5 people in the room, so it feels good. Thanks for being here and like giving a little window of what things will become. So we're going to open this as like a showroom on Fridays and Saturdays to kind of showcase our instruments, have little in-store performances. So this is a nice little soft launch. So thanks for being here. Yeah. And say hello. I'm sorry if I was standoffish before. I was just trying to get the speakers working.
That makes sense. David, would you like to kick us off?
Sure.
That would be beautiful. What's fun about the idea of like this obviously came together very quickly with the presentations. A call for presentations was put out nary 24 hours ago, and so many folks responded. But it was really special to have David share a recording of, I think, what will be presented, and then have people immediately just be like, this is the most beautiful fucking thing. This is so cool. Like, what after the other. So I'm excited. I would love to say.
Yeah, it's like, don't come home if you don't get this reward.
Yeah. So let me see if that's going to be a good idea.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm David Moses. I'm going to share a discovery of mine, which is how to turn MLRE into a harmonizer, which maybe some of you already know how to do, but I just discovered it and I think it's pretty cool. But before I do that, if it's okay, I want to just share some words about why I love the Norns and why I feel like I'm just so drawn to it. I watched this lecture recently that was about the band Suicide, and the lecture was about this, if anyone's familiar with the philosophers Deleuze and Guattari, they have this concept called not thinking about things about what they are, not saying what is this, but what can it do. And in the context of this lecture, it was about how the band Suicide utilized drum machines at the time, which was very revolutionary. and all they did was speed them up, because Martin Rev asked, like, what is this? It's not a drum machine. What can it do? He turned it up to a crazy speed, and it created this whole new sonic palette. So I think that idea really kind of embodies the ethos of what this instrument is and what the community is. But it kind of feels like an extension of that idea, because it's not an individual asking that question, but a collective community asking that question. So how I kind of came across this discovery kind of felt like that manifest. There's a friend of mine and a musician I deeply respect, Matthew David, put out this gorgeous album a couple years ago called Mycelian Music, which is really kind of like a love letter to the Norns. The whole thing was kind of composed on the Norns, and it's what got me into this device to begin with. And there's a track called MLR that I love, which, as we all know, that's a really beloved script. So when I finally got my hands on a Norns and a grid, I was like determined to learn MLR, but I was very excited to learn that there was something called MLRE, an extended version of this. So I began to experiment with that. I got into threads, was asking questions, troubleshooting, and then started trying to convince my friend Matthew, like, you got to try like MLRE. It's amazing. It's like an extended version of the script that you love. He, however, did not have the same experience I did, because he was really into this mode in MLR that allowed you to kind of split the buffers across each track. If anyone's, are we kind of assuming that most of us are familiar with MLR, but it's a 6-track recorder or looper or sampler, and there was a mode where you could have all the tracks share the same buffer. But there was an update with MLRE where Sonar Circuit, the creator of it, had removed that feature. So what happened then was Matthew posting about the old feature on the thread, me encouraging the return of this feature, but also celebrating the feature that he had created, which was kind of leaning it towards, created this thing called tape mode, which was leaning it towards more as like a sampler. But then with continuing to participate in the thread, continuing to use this, eventually beta testing the newest version, it led to Sonar Circuit adding back the feature that Matthew loved, while keeping the tape feature. So this then led to me exploring how to use buffers, which then I was kind of figuring out, oh wow, this can actually kind of be a harmonizer. Not just a sampler, not just a loop station, not just a kind of asynchronous delay. So really, that moment kind of felt like this collective action of the people who are participating in lines and investing their time in this, asking that question communally, like, what can this thing do? So yeah, just wanted to share that before demoing. Oh, I need output.
Also, Nick, that was
Thank you.
Can I make a request? When you say your name, would you say who you are online?
Oh yeah, D Moss, D
Okay,
underscore Moss. Thank you. Thank you.
Otherwise, like, hard to know who's
Sure.
yeah, the
You
one
can-
with the notch is left.
One with the knot is left, okay. You can find me on the MLRE thread most of the time. Don't fail me now, come on. There we go. Okay, so I have the first buffer, just recording. You can hear it feeding back. And then I'm going to add 5 more buffers. And now we have. So who's familiar with MLRE? Can I have a show of hands? The users. Oh, okay, awesome. So one thing that MLRE can do is it's incredibly gestural instruments. So what I mean by that is it has sequences that you can save within it and create gestures. So let me just kind of give an example of what I kind of the time frequency in which I made those pitch changes. But another recent discovery I made is how I'm building this. So there is, you can change, here, let's just kind of make a quick loop here. Terrible with theory, but this is like some kind of 9 chord that's created. So like here's a little more of a familiar 7, like a major 7 here. The cool thing about MLRE is you can select a custom scale. So if I want to change this to a minor 7, I just went to the parameters, change it to natural minor. Discovery. How many? Right. Okay, cool.
So time does not.
There's this one.
Yeah,
Okay. So there's the gestures, so you can like record pitch changes, direction changes. You can record transposition. You can even kind of punch in. There's like people are welcome to come up and look closer if you're curious too. You can kind of see on each track. It shows you how the buffer is moving. You can punch in specific parts, which is kind of using it more as a sampler. But another thing you can do, and I'm going to change to the transposition page right now, is you can save what's called snapshots, which are, if you have it set up in a certain way, you can create a memory of where it was set up at that time. So let's record a chord here. And I'm going to now, just with the buffer recorded, start changing chords. So another thing MLRE can do, so with the 6 channels, the 5th and the 6th channels can be a send channels. So you can send any track from 1 through 4 to 5 and 6, and 5 can also go to 6 as well. So the way I've set, some pretty interesting things start to happen when you start to use this kind of stacking in a more textual way. Oh, muted. Oh, whoops, there we go. I didn't record it. Let's try that again. Band pass filter on it, which is some of this. Sorry about that. Whoops. Let's try that again. Sorry about the feedback. And with a noise set. Oh, thank you. Any questions before I scurry back over there? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Wait, you gotta give us some time to make things.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yes, come on.
So is that like just baked into what MLRE is right now, or change code?
No, so I didn't change any code. This was kind of that story I was, so you initially could, what I was describing, you could, for an older version of MLRE, do this, but it kind of got rebirthed into the new version because of that whole dialogue that happened. Yeah, and this is like, as I said, like people use it completely opposite ways to how I use it, which is I think the beauty of it, and the beauty of a lot of the scripts on Norns. It's like they're these kind of open templates.
Are there kind of like dead ends in your previous explorations around this idea? Because like the way that you fleshed it out is clearly you've been like percolating on this for a while. It's like way of interacting with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious like what you've explored in the past to like realize this.
I've relied more on an Ableton device, pitch loop. I really fell in love with that device. So it was more of like, and I've been in this kind of like, can I recreate it on Ableton? Can I recreate it on Norns kind of process with myself? And just the limitation, for me, it's the limitation of working with an older laptop that can crap out on me at any moment. So, and just the finickiness of having a laptop with you for a performance versus, I mean, there things can go wild, as you kind of saw. Like the last part got a little crazy, but you know, it's, so the dead end, this has been pretty new. This has actually been about 2 weeks of exploring there. So I haven't, there's one limitation is that everything, there's a filter cutoff on everything. If I didn't have the filter cutoff, you would hear clicks, which is the tape heads crossing. So just aesthetically, I don't like those. So that's a bit of a, you could say, somewhat of a limit. Like it's always going to have a darker palette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those clicks are hard to.
No, they're totally. I'm kind of learning to let go of like what I think is not supposed to be there, and just be in more dialogue with the device. So thank you for that reminder. Awesome. Thank you. Just thank you guys so much for putting this on. This is incredible. Really wonderful to be able to share. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
I want to add a component now. Do you have anything coming up, like new music or a show or anything like that?
If anyone's here next weekend, I have a listening party for a new album that's coming out at La Tierra de la Calabre. We're going to be from 1 p.m. to like 5. I collaborated with the pianist, Tristan Deliege. I was reprocessing him through Norns, through MLRE a lot. And then I'm also going to be doing this for an hour at Kinship Yoga for a yin class at 6 p.m. There's a series called Yoga in Concert, so I'm going to be playing Norns and flute, and a couple other devices will be there for that one. So
Maybe without the feedback.
hopefully, yeah. I'm going to try to avoid that. Yes. Apologies for that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.
It is still sunny out. Sorry, I caught it. Wow.
We can totally do the representative play.
Yeah? You want to? No, go ahead.
I was just one quick announcement. There is a bathroom down the back left, if you need it. Yeah, welcome. Please adventure.
How about Aldo? Yeah. Robin, you want to go after me? Yeah. Okay. It'll take me 1 second to set up.
Gonna go to the back.
Talking about flowchart? Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that. Jonathan is a dear friend and somebody who models curiosity. And I think that that's such an important quality of not only existing in an online community, but existing as a teacher and existing as a human being, as a parent, as somebody involved in communities. Jonathan is connected to so many people who also ask questions, and through that, he knows how to ask really good ones. And he's such a sweetheart. I'm excited to share his presentation.
What the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, what a good question.
Okay, so this is a talk. Well, before I start, what I love about lines is that I can spend a lot of time doing something and like be incredibly uncertain about what I've done and still share it and feel like I'm able to contribute as somebody who is sort of just beginning their journey in synthesis and coding and yeah. So thank you all for like accepting like people who kind of aren't quite sure they know what they're doing. And this is an example of that. So this is sort of my, this is about fluid corpus manipulation. Has anybody heard of this library? Okay. It's a project from a school in England. And it's, I will describe what it is. So I'm going to talk about fluid corpus manipulation and my sort of discovery that it's possible to get it to run on Norns on a Raspberry Pi. And there's going to be lots of hand waving. And if anybody sees me waving my hands and they actually have an understanding of what I'm talking about, please feel free to jump in. Because I'm like really just beginning, and this is a lot of machine learning ideas that I'm just beginning to discover. So fluid corpus manipulation, according to them, investigates new musical ways of exploiting ever-growing banks of sound and gestures within the digital composition process. It's a DSP and machine learning tool set. Toolkits to use fluid corpus manipulation are available for Max, Super Collider, and Pure Data. So if you're familiar with any of those pieces of software, you can use fluid corpus manipulation. And as I believe it's pretty equivalent from one language to another in terms of the sorts of things available within the tool set. Here is, don't expect you to like grok every single one of these, but these are the sort of modules available within we'll call it the library. And it does these sort of 6, 7 things. It has modules to analyze data, analyze sound. There's some utility objects, some of which are have a lot of utility. So this one at the top is called Buff Compose, and I always have a lot of challenges when I have a buffer in Super Collider, and I only want to I got a problem where I want to separate a stereo buffer into 2 mono buffers, and you can kind of do it in Super Collider. You can totally do it in Super Collider, but with this Buff Compose module, it's extremely straightforward and works really well. So there's some things that are like very simple and straightforward. You can also do things that are much more complex, like around decomposing sound, separating a sound into its component harmonic and percussive elements. And I'll give a demonstration of that. You can also slice sound. So there's like an onset slice or transient slice, so you can detect when a slice begins. In a sample, again, super useful. And then transforming sound, you can do things like this very last one, this NMF morph. You can take 2 sounds and give it to this morph function, and it will morph between the 2 sounds and give you a new one. it's not just a mix, it's actually sort of taking the sounds apart and putting them back together. And you can like say, I want you to take 20% of the first sound and 80% of the second sound and mush it together and give me something. The colors are just, there's 4 things I'm going to cover, 4 examples of it, and each color represents a different example. And you can sort of see some of these, like with the HPSS, this one, that's the only thing I'm going to demonstrate, but some others are using multiple libraries together. And everything that I'm demonstrating is like straight out of their example material. So if you like go home and load up Flucoma, you can find these tutorials. And the tutorials are super good. There's video tutorials where they write out the example like line by line and explain exactly what they're doing. So very well put together. Cool, okay. So 4 examples. 3 of them are going to be machine learning examples, and 1 is going to be this harmonic percussive filter. So let's jump in. So first one is machine learning chaotic synth. And all of this stuff is all hand wavy up here. But it's performing a regression between data sets using a multi-layer perceptron neural network. Has anybody worked with a multi-layer perceptron neural network? A little bit, maybe? Like neural networks, like that's kind of like the basis of machine learning. So, like, this is, I think, a really useful library, if anything, just to sort of begin to understand what some of these concepts are about. So, the first 2 examples I'm going to do in Super Collider on my laptop. So the regressor machine learning synth. So here is code, and I'm not going to like do like a code review, but because I couldn't explain it very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first, there are these first 2 lines at the top, they're just buffers. The first one is actually, hold on, I'm going to sort of clear out, restart the Super Collider server. Yay. So the first 2 lines, and I'm not going to go entirely line by line, but first I'm going to load 2 buffers. One is a music box sound, and the second is a bass sound. And then for each of these 2 buffers, I'm going to load 2 other buffers. A training buffer and a testing buffer. And the training buffer is going to be the first half of the sound that we'll use to train the program on what does a music box sound like and what does a bass sound like. And then the second 2 buffers are going to be the second half of the original buffer that we'll use to test. So it's like, okay, we've trained it and now we're going to test it on a sound it's never heard before, and we'll see if it recognizes it. So I'm just going to load up these training buffers, and here's our test buffers. And here is what the music box sounds like. And here is the... Now I'm going to load some code, and let's see, where, okay, so I'm going to play the training So I've created a real-time analysis function that is going to play the sound of the music box, the training portion of the music box, through this analysis function. And then here there's this line that says add point. And so I'm just going to add a bunch of points, which is basically while the sound is playing, I'm going to say, learn this sound at this point. So it's going to give it some data points. So I'm going to we'll see how that goes. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the bass and have it add a point for the bass. Now I'm going to create a function which uses a library called MLP classifier. And I'm going to take this classifier function and I am going to fit the data that we just captured when we were playing the two sounds into the classifier. And then I'm making a querying function that will be used to train it. And now I'm going to recognize the sound. So success. And now I'm going to do the same with the bass. Learn what a bass in the music box sounds like. And then you can also do this, so that's sort of like an offline mode, and you can also do it in real time. So I'm going to play, so I created earlier a function called real-time analysis, and I'm going to run it on the music box and then execute this code at the very bottom, and it's going to try and guess again what it is. Got a music box. So, and now let's try it with the. Fluke mode classification. So that's the first example. Second example is a classifier machine learning sound identifier. It's not really identifying a sound, it's identifying a configuration. And it's also using a multi-layer perceptron neural network. Fascinating. So for this one, I'm going to load up this little UI, which is a chaos synth. And each of these bars represents a different parameter in the synth. So okay, so I'm going to, and so there are these buttons on the right, and the ones that we're going to look at are add points, like similar to last example where we added points. I'm going to add some points that are going to be, I'm going to move this dot around in this XY axis, and I'm going to set a configuration and then say, remember this, the relationship between the location of this point on this XY axis and the configuration of the parameters for the synth. So we'll start with the bottom left with like nothing. So I'm going to add points, and then I'm going to go up and I'll do here, and if you remember, oh, this corner has these configurations. All right, so the next thing is I was thinking it would be nifty if this could be ported to Norns, and there's a thread on the Flukama forum about that, and they kind of mostly give pretty good instructions, but it's not like there's no official Raspberry Pi build. They just have a thread about running it on Raspberry Pi, and they give some examples of what you need to do to get it to compile, and by I don't know how, but I got it to compile. It's currently in a GitHub. I haven't published it yet, but at some point in the future I'll publish it. And if anybody in the meantime wants to get a hold of it, just send me a note. I'm happy to share it. But with no guarantees. So let's go to our. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to show is. Oh wait. Yeah, I'm not going to show you my slides. So the first thing I'm going to show is 2D. It's called 2D Corpus, and it's going to take about 15 sound buffers, and it's going to load them up into a single buffer, do sort of like an onset detection, so it finds out within these 16 sound files all of the sounds when does each sound begin, and it's going to create sort of index of all of the unique sounds that it's identified, and then it's going to do an analysis of it in 13 dimensions of like timbre or percussiveness, or I can't remember all the different dimensions, and then it's going to sort of smash those 13 dimensions down to 2 that will be displayed on the Norns, because the Norn screen is kind of like a 2-dimensional thing, so it's kind of hard to like navigate through 13 dimensions on the screen, so this like makes it a little easier. So it's going to load. It's a little slow. I found that some things, like when in this example, if I take all of the sound files that are in the example that they give, it kind of dies silently. But I found that if I sort of pair them in half, it gets through the code without dying. And you can see here, now you have a bunch of dots, and each dot represents a different sound, and we can use this. Smashing of these different dimensions. Every time you run it, you're going to get, it's like the layout of the different sounds is slightly different, but you always do get this sort of grouping when there's like hundreds of parameters for like how you want this grouping to happen. Script, and then I like put it together. It's like, okay, how do I make this musical? And I haven't figured that out yet. It's just kind of why it hasn't been published. But I think there's interesting possibilities here. Good question.
So, yeah, is it going to create an initial act?
Yeah, I think there is a way, if you like, this is the map I want, you can save it and then load it later. Actually, I know that's the case because what's happening is I'm taking the data and I'm saving it in a JSON file. And the JSON file has the sort of the locations of each sound within the buffer. And then it's sending those, as I'm moving the cursor, it's sending the data from the JSON file to Super Collider, and it's using that to play the buffer at the right place.
It's searching for the most commonality.
It's yes, among commonality in like 13 categories of audio analysis.
And the
The two
two it chooses, is that like the one that
it chooses are there. It's not choosing 2 of the 13. It's taking those 13 and sort of smushing them into 2 dimensions so that you can place them on an XY axis. And yeah, and that's as far as I can explain. Cool. So that's that. The last example I'm going to show is a filter that separates harmonic from percussive content. And the sound you're going to hear is ZBS, Zadie, on lines, I don't know, a couple years ago, published a interstate techno album for driving at night. And I think it's a lovely album. And so she gave me permission. Thank you. Oh, my phone. Let's get back to. Okay, so we're going to load HPSS, harmonic percussive something. It's gonna load. We can read it together. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah. If with this particular filter, you could isolate voices, not individual voices necessarily, but there are definitely worth looking at. I'm sure there's some combination of modules that might get you close to what you want. We were talking the other day about like separating sounds, and I think it's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, I'm just, so the, if we go if we pull it up, let me see if I can make it larger. So if you look at the, it's a lot of parameters, but basically you are, you're just giving it a source, like the second parameter is source. You're just saying, here's the source audio buffer. Go separate it. Yeah, so that's it's not a machine learning algorithm. It's a filtering algorithm. And there's some interesting, if you look up the documentation, there's the other nice thing is they in all the documentation they give references to the original papers that were based yeah, I think there's potential. And for some reason I got really interested in it, but not in terms of possibilities. I'm excited to like put this out there and feel like, oh, it actually is working. I think it's a really great idea to use Norns as a platform, among other things, because it is so limited that it really forces you to like do things very simply. Because when you start to get more and more complicated with processors, it's not. Yeah, it's using quite a bit of the processor, and some of the things that I've tried, like I mentioned, there's this morphing function, and I was playing with it, and it was it was like spitting out a lot of digital noise because it was hitting the limits of the processor and freaking out. And with the HPSS, I thought I was hitting the limit, but then I figured out how to tweak it so that you can train it in, you can sort of have it do sort of training in real time, or you can train it and then have it analyze in real time, or you can sort of have it do the training and analysis. Potentially. If you look up flute there's an amazing video of somebody playing the flute with using flute, and like she's making certain timbres with the flute, and all of a sudden you hear like glass breaking, or like something, a box, something falling onto the floor, and it's hilarious. Wonderful, wonderful. Cool. Ready? Oh, yeah.
First demo for sampling sounds for your loss function. It's like this full sound sample program. You try using like slightly different
it'd be interesting to like see like how much similarity, like at what point does it break down and does it become unable to distinguish between sounds because they're too similar? I haven't checked that yet. But I imagine like if you had like a B flat clarinet and a bass clarinet, I think you'd be likely to be able to tell the difference between B flat and C clarinet, something very similar, unless you were using different measures of for this is it's a C library that's been compiled into SuperCollider maps in pure. So you don't have to think about C while you're using it. You just use the native API. Cool. Great.
Yep. All right. Hey everybody, my name is Robin. I am midouest on the Lines Forum, spelled with an OU instead of a W. I'm mostly a programmer, and I love programming Norn scripts for fun, making them talk to the mannequins modules. It's just a whole world of possibilities, and I just love to see like, what if I can make it do this thing or that thing, and then share it on the forum, and somebody who's much more talented than me at music goes and does something with it that I didn't even think was possible. So this is kind of my latest project, which is making two parts, kind of making the playdate talk to the Norns, and then also making the playdate emulate an ARC and kind of integrate seamlessly with any ARC-enabled scripts. So just going to kind of talk through the process of developing that and do a little demo for y'all to see. And then if anybody wants to like come up and try it out afterwards or see how it feels, feel free to. But yeah, as soon as I saw the playdate, you know, of course, it's a teenage engineering device, so I was like, I gotta connect it to all my other music equipment. And wouldn't it be cool if like the crank could somehow control the Norns or my modular synth? But the playdate doesn't speak MIDI or OSC or any of the kind of like higher level stuff that Norns can integrate with out of the box. So I kind of wrote that off. But later realized that it has a much lower level like serial API that's kind of like you know, what Grid or ARCs would use to talk to Norns. And that kind of led me down this path of building that, and as well as adding some new APIs to Norns that will hopefully open up possibilities for future controllers beyond this, just this one. So, for example, on the Discord server, some people were talking about, I think it's the like Melbourne Instruments Roto controller or something like that, also has an API that could potentially talk to Norns now, which is cool. So, anyway, yeah. Programming the playdate is a lot like programming the Norns. You can do it in Lua, and that's kind of how I started out here. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. As you can see, one of the downsides of the Playdate is it's not backlit, so kind of hard to see in like a dark environment. But for me, what really like motivated me to do this whole project is that I wanted to be able to experiment with, or like build ARC support into my scripts for other people to use, but I don't have an ARC quite yet. Yeah, anyway, started out, I guess other motivations for this were learning the mod API in Norns, and then also just wanting to contribute like a bigger feature to the Norns code base itself. So I have done some like bug fixes, some documentation and stuff, and I was talking about this idea on the Norns study group Discord server, and Michael Dewberry suggested that it might be like a good general kind of tool that other people could use. So shout out to him for kind of leading me down this path. Yeah, it started out, I basically copied the Crow module in Norns, and that got me pretty far. It's now a bit more general than that, so you can basically go and write a new like device driver almost in Lua on your Norns. It'll become a mod, or you enable it as a mod, and it would allow you to kind of integrate any other device into the Norns ecosystem like that. And then from there, I built out this little Playdate app, which I've affectionately called Crankin-Arc. So yeah, you can see it running here with the Concret script. And basically there's like a couple different mods running behind the scenes that orchestrate all of this, make it appear as if it's an arc. And then it just works. So it's rendering, you can see all the rings on the screen here. With the Playdate, since it is monochrome, it uses dithering to do shades of gray. I might need you to unlock your phone, Jonathan. Thank you.
Just add it to the pile.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, unlike the ARC, which does like a bright yellowish white for on, and then off is just dark. This is kind of the opposite, where you have like black or a dark gray represents an on LED, and then white is off, and then dithering for shades in between. So yeah, let's see if I, and then obviously the Playdate only has the one crank, so we're using the D-pad to, might be able to see that the rings are highlighting to tell which one is focused, and then as I crank it, it's changing the value on Norns, and Norns is just rendering it happily and going on. Let's see. Trying to remember where I was going with this. Yeah, there was, for anyone who's like programming inclined, there are a whole lot of challenges with getting this to render smoothly that I can dive into more detail if you're interested afterwards. But yeah, the Playdate is very underpowered when it comes to rendering, so had to be very lazy with what we are rendering. And yeah, future things that I'm kind of thinking about with this, I haven't actually used an ARC, so I'd love to try that one out over there and see how it feels. One of the interesting comments on lines is that the ARC in the like demos seems to have some like momentum that it imparts. I don't know if that is like part of the physical nature of the device or if it's something that scripts are building in, but wouldn't it be cool if the Playdate could like emulate that momentum and kind of get the same sort of feel when you're playing with it. And so I've been experimenting with that a little bit. I don't have it running right now, but I've been experimenting with adding a little physics simulation to each knob that gives it like some friction and momentum. I think finding the right values to use there is a challenge, but then also it could just be its own thing where you use totally different values, like what if it could behave more like a bicycle wheel or like a flywheel or something that you can't do with an arc or a different controller. So that's kind of the direction that I'd like to take it in the future. But yeah, again, thanks to Michael Dewberry for pointing me down this road. Tyler Lubke helped me a lot with the code, and of course Brian at Mono helped a lot as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll keep it short, but does anyone have any questions or anything about this?
I have a super basic question.
Yeah.
Could you sort of just, so this is the data is being transferred over serial,
That's right.
and can you sort of explain, like, what does that mean to use a serial connection?
Yeah. Basically, you're just sending like pure bits over the wire. There's no really protocol to it. There is some like lower level stuff of like how you do air handling and like the frequency the data gets communicated with. So that's if you were to like write a mod for another device, that's like a very low level detail that you need to figure out. But often these devices like have some kind of configuration that they're meant to work with. But from there, it's pretty much just a matter of like what is the protocol that I'm going to use. So for this one, I kind of just like made up a protocol it's basically just sending text back and forth with like the values for each LED on each ring. It's kind of following what a real arc would do. But yeah, it's very like freeform and open. So
So you're saying character representations, it's like in binary?
yeah, right now it's ASCII, but I fixed a bug that now allows you to basically just send binary and do really optimize the heck out of it if you want. So yeah.
Are there serial devices that exist that you also want to like kind of bring into a musical context?
That's a great question. I haven't thought about that. I think the roto control one looks really cool. I haven't tried that. I'd be interested to see what else is out there. I'm sure there's like lots of stuff. I think everything is using serial at some level probably. So yeah.
Yeah, I have one more question.
Yes.
Just because I remember watching these commits come in and like PR get constructed, and like it's so cool that you engaged with this like lineage of the system that I think a lot of folks who are scripting using all the API building blocks that are already in place, they don't even touch. Was there anything that you, I don't know, were like surprised by or like struck by as you dug into those lower levels?
I better have to think about that for a second. Yeah, nothing immediately jumps to mind, but I don't know, it's so cool to dive into the code base and just see how it all comes together. I don't know, there's so much going on. I think that's like the biggest thing is just how much it's capable of doing. So that's exciting. And then also just like, I don't know, like it seems like there's a lot of opportunities to contribute and ideas in there to develop and stuff like that. So, but I don't have a specific one that comes to mind. So
That's cool. I mean,
yeah.
this is like a huge, like flag plant. It's a full high watermark. Thank you for making it happen.
Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
I've also thought that it's really cool that all of the presentations tonight have been sort of like varying levels of like new stuff that everybody's kind of been working on, which is really cool because for context, I messaged Danny last night and I was like, hey, I'll present something. And then we kind of like figured it out like early this morning, and now I'm here doing this. And I was like thinking about what I want to do, and I was like, oh, like I have this thing I'm like really stoked on, but it's not like super polished yet or anything like that. I'm still sort of exploring it. But as it turns out, everybody's sort of doing that here tonight too, which is really cool, and I think that's great. I think it's nice to not like see this thing that someone has clearly spent like hours and hours and hours and hours doing behind the scenes just to see the final result. You're sort of seeing what people are doing all together in real time. So that's really cool.
Like the vegan sausage factory.
Exactly. Yeah. So in that theme, something I've been exploring very recently, I've been building this sort of multi-channel guitar system. Not multi-channel in the sense of like taking my one guitar amp or whatever and bouncing it around to different speakers. I have done stuff like that, and that's really fun. But specifically, I'm talking about I have this special pickup that I've affixed to my guitar as of 1 week ago. And what the cool thing about this is it does multi-channel processing, or not processing, it just gives me an individual audio output per string. That is, wow, right? I've been sort of thinking about this for a while, in my head, like, oh, what would this look like? How would I make it cool and interesting, and what sort of things could I do with it? And now I'm actually here doing it, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the things I've been thinking about and the sort of challenges of putting this together and all the fun stuff that goes along with that. Obviously, if you have 6 or more, depending on your guitar, strings, you could do the thing where you have 6 pedal boards, 6 amps, but that's a lot. That's very loud. I live in an apartment. I don't have that kind of space either. So software seemed like the way to go, and Ableton and Max is sort of my go-to for all of the above. Obviously, with working with multiple simultaneous input sources at once that you can treat separately but are ultimately from one related thing. Like I can pickup simulator that I can drop onto each track and kind of make it sound more like a traditional electric guitar that I'm used to. And that is what this is. And obviously, I can, plop 6 of these onto each track and I could sit there and, dial each one in separately, but that is very tedious. if I had more strings on my guitar, that's in more times that I have to do that, which I would love to put a similar pickup on my 8-string guitar someday. So that would be, 33% more effort for anything I want to do. So then I was like, okay, I need to, once I get something going, I need to figure out a system for sort of macro controlling these automatically. So on the group track, I have this sort of, it's still in the sort of like prototype stage, but this is this sort of like group controller device that I've sort of ideated upon, that when the live set loads up, it auto maps to everything within the group for the device that's meant to control. So you'll see there are like, parallel UI elements as far as like the knobs and stuff, and you'll see like internally I have the device hard-coded to the tuning of this guitar, so you'll see each instance. In the top right here, it's changing the open note that it's doing. I could get into the theory of how the pickup simulator works, but to borrow from Jonathan's presentation, there would be lots of this as I talk about it and stuff, so I will spare you from that. But yeah, this controller thing, I can roughly followed that, but ultimately just kind of followed my ear and what sounded good to me. I also threw in some other ones that, kind of just were dialed in on the fly. But also, it's sort of exposed right here, but there is this filter view I can enable, and you'll see now on all the instances of the device, it's sort of opened up, and you can sort of like go in here and sort of interesting things with it, which is where this lovely, currently generic, very Max for Live looking test controller device comes in, which I have my beautiful ARC hooked up into here. And I also, on each track, I have this looper thing set up here. It's just a basic looper. There's no like vary speed or anything. There's no granular stuff. It's just probably just about the most vanilla max looper patch you could make. But I wanted to start with something simple purposefully because, you know, controlling 6 instances of something at once can get pretty interesting and fun pretty fast. And hopefully I will demonstrate what I mean by this. So I'm just going to guitar plug-in and turn off the great sounding but you know, delay and reverb that maybe obscure a bit of what's going on. But I'm going to try capturing a loop. I have a record button here, but I have internally mapped it to this nifty button on the new Arc. Crazy, like wow. So I'm going to it requires me to use a hand to press the button, of course, so I'm going to try to play something to start with my other hand. My favorite
Not just like, oh yeah, play with things like Steve, but they are actively taking a unified gesture and then atomizing it.
Yeah.
Fucking with the time scales of not just pitch, but like you're actively
Yeah.
adding or subtracting time.
Yeah.
And that's fucking cool. That's a cool way to think about one thing that you did with your body.
Yeah.
That you could just like unravel for like
Yeah.
25 minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And for context, this whole sort of like journey, like the guitar was the first instrument I picked up when I was a youth, and I was super into it, and I like went to music school, and like in the middle of that got like super fucking burnt out on playing the guitar, and that's when I sort of pivoted into like electronic music and getting into Max and the mono stuff and all these other things that I'm still like very, very passionate about to this day. And once that sort of part of myself that cherished playing the guitar had healed a bit, I wanted to come back to that part of myself and be like, okay, what can I do with the knowledge and experience and taste in interacting with sound that I've curated for myself in the years since I left the instrument, and how can I bring it back to where I began and make things fresh and inspiring for myself again.
It's really exciting.
So, yes.
I'm curious if you've experimented at all with kind of like live string retuning or kind of like alternate tunings. I feel like if you have access to all the individual strings, especially if you're building these like master live devices, I feel like if you got the right like pitch algorithm, you could just like basically retune it on the fly and kind of mess it all with tuning.
Not yet, but that is definitely on my list of things to do, and that's why the MLRE stuff you did earlier was like so sick, because I was like, that's it. You know, obviously, you know, different platform, but same idea that I'm like interested to explore and stuff. I had originally, instead of this pickup, I had violated this instrument by installing one of those like Boss GK pickups on there. Yeah, and I loved a lot of things about that, especially I played around with the new VG800 that they came out with earlier this year, and that one does have like alternate tunings and stuff built into it, which is really cool, because especially on like the patch where you like press a button and it like emulates a B bender and your notes just like change underneath your fingers without you doing anything. It's really like disorienting at first, but really cool. And similarly with scrolling through patches and suddenly, you know, you're on like an open D kind of patch, or there was one that was really trippy where it was like a 5-string banjo or something, and it just like totally like killed the audio from the bottom string or something. But yes, that is something generally in the back of my mind as I'm thinking about it, because similar to the snapshots thing you were doing, I feel like having like a foot pedal where you can just like play something and then it just like spreads out into a different chord could be very dramatic and interesting and cool.
I guess not to get to like, I fucking love lines, but like that's the thing, right? To be able to take the idea that someone else is exploring in a different platform,
Yeah.
and say these are the things that are compelling to me in the virtuosities that I do have, or the environment that's most compelling to me. And there's this like, if we don't talk about that exchange and we're leaving it to what's legible through code diagram,
Yeah.
then it's like it never gets surfaced. It
Yeah.
never gets surfaced as like a thing that a set of gestures or an aesthetic or like a compositional tool.
Right.
It becomes like, oh yeah, I made my cool special little thing.
Yeah.
And only those who know how to penetrate the code can
Right.
get to it.
Mhm.
So it's fucking rad to be able to make that legible.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it's interesting too, because like, you know, I've tried Norns a few times, and you know, ultimately I've decided it's not for me, and that's okay, because at some point, you know, as much as I love going down different rabbit holes, a moment of personal growth was realizing like, oh, I can like stick to the things I know and really like refine it and do that, and that's okay because it works for me, and that's cool. But I do like seeing the things that people do on like Norns or like Super Collider, these things that I'm not really familiar with, because you know, if I'm familiar enough with a concept that I'm not, you know, entirely fluent in the vernacular of that particular platform, I can still read about the discourse of people talking about it and doing things, and you know, be like, okay, now how can I adapt this into my practice of things that I know how to do and am comfortable doing. Yeah.
Thank you. That was amazing.
happy to be out. I'm thankful I saw that post Danny did yesterday afternoon. I was like, oh shit, like this would be fun.
Real reckless on my end. Really thankful for all of you. Seriously, that was what a fucking cool night.
Thank you for